Hi there, Kinjal. Okay, so you wrote the chip manufacturer bar chart. Let's see how you did with this, all right? You don't have it with you. You didn't include it here. That would be really helpful because I do need to refer to it. Looking at your answer, my first question to you is how long did it take you to write this task one? It's really rather large. It's got to be over 250 words. Remember that you have to spend about 20 minutes on this, no more for sure, so that you have enough time for your task two. Also, the other thing I want to remind you about is that the task one here is really focusing on your ability to select and edit information and not include every single piece of data. This particular chart has, if I remember correctly, 24 pieces of information. You have to select and edit and describe the most important ones and so forth. So looking at this, it feels kind of large, which makes me a little worried. I'm wondering if maybe you didn't really select and just kind of wrote about everything. So that's the first impression that I get when I look at this task one. Let's see though what you actually wrote. The bar chart provides information about chip sales of AMD and Intel. Just get rid of this. In France, in the 12-month period of 2017, units are measured in thousands, S here. Overall, Intel chips, get rid of the by manufacturer. That's what they mean. Intel is the manufacturer. So, Intel chips, no, let's try it one more time. Overall, Intel chips sold more than AMD chips in the period given. The most Intel chips, alright, this is awkward. The highest Intel chip sales were in the middle of the year in June compared to AMD, careful chips, almost at the start of the year in February. Furthermore, the most significant difference in sales between the two chips was in November. Was it? It wasn't in June? Because I thought it was significant that AMD sold nothing and Intel sold really quite a bit there, because that's actually the peak. So this is confusing to me. Also, for an overview, it's a little too much. You have 3 pieces of information here for your overview, so I would have just selected at most 2. And like I said, you didn't include it, so it's difficult for me to remember what happened in November. I do know what happened in June, that's where Intel had the most sales, at least I remember it being the peak, and AMD sold nothing. So that's something that probably would have been important to mention in your overview. Okay, let's see what else you did here. Intel's sales rate was about 50 in January and continued drastically increase up to 2 months, reaching around 80 in February and around 90 in March. All right, so the problem here is grammar. I'm glad you started off in January. That's a good thing to do because it is a story. So it's important to start at the beginning and tell us what we're looking at in the beginning of the year as well as the end of the year. So, but there's a lot of problems with the grammar and the vocabulary. More specifically, Intel sales were about 50,000, of course, in January, and continued a steady increase in the following 2 months, reaching around 80 in February and around 90 in March. While the figures quickly decreased, what does that mean? To gradual increased, almost half over during 2 months. It was approximately 25 in April, around 125 in June, and not sales of AMD chips in this month. Wow, okay. That sentence isn't clear at all. The grammar, the vocabulary, I think I know what I thought I knew what you were trying to say, but then you lost me. So I think what you're trying to tell me is while the figures showed a sudden decrease, they then gradually increased, but that doesn't make sense. You don't increase to almost half, you increase to almost double over the following 2 months, from approximately 25 in April to around 125 in June, full stop. Now, since you're talking about Intel, why are you mentioning AMD here? Does not belong at all. It decreased drastically to about 25, and sales of Intel chips in August almost doubled that of July, while they steadily declined during the next 2 months, S, of September and October, to around 24 and around 23, respectively. They, because it's sales, plural, increased to around 110 in November, then decreased by around 3 in December. Okay, this is exactly what I was afraid of. You basically just detailed every single month. That's what I was worried was going to happen, and you needed to really select information and group information more appropriately. I didn't want a play-by-play month by month, okay? So apart from that, the grammar is really problematic in a number of areas. So two things there are creating a problem for you. All right, let's look at the next paragraph. On the other hand, the sales of AMD chips were lower than Intel chips. Above 120 was sold by AMD in February, okay, which was almost double that of March. It slightly increased sales in April to about 47 and decreased drastically to about 25 in May. Throughout the period, what does that mean, throughout the period? That doesn't make sense, so get rid of that. It did not report any sales in June, and in July, recorded almost double that of August. That doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what August is. So you're telling me that July was double August, but I don't know what August is, so that information is not helpful. And increased to about 75 in September, and the figure experienced a quick decrease during the 2 months. I have no idea what we're talking about here. During the next 2 months, look how long this sentence is. When does this sentence start? Look, it starts all the way up here, and it ends here. And in this one sentence, you're covering half the year. So that's a no. You've got to, number one, reduce the size of your sentence because you lose meaning. Number two, you have to group together your months a little better. Not giving me every single month, but instead selecting and describing appropriately. Grouping is really the key here. So no. Okay. I think I've been pretty specific with the errors here. They are for sure lack of grouping, lack of editing, lack of selecting. So that's going to affect task achievement and could possibly affect your coherence and cohesion, although I think your coherence and cohesion score is also affected by your grammar. So basically we're looking at all 4 of these because there were some vocabulary problems as well. So all 4 of these are going to be affected. So keep all of that in mind, and let's go into your task 2, which talks about local food. Let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether whether local food or food traveling from other areas. No. Let's try that one more time. I'm trying to read and correct at the same time. So, experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether local food or food traveling to the cities a long distance to reach the consumer has a greater impact on our lives. Okay, this essay will discuss both sides using examples from the UK government and research studies to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, but you didn't tell me what that argument is. So it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree that we must eat local food? That's what they're asking you to talk about. And the best place to say what you think is in your introduction. It's important because this way your position is clear throughout the response. The examiner knows where you stand on this issue, and then you can develop your paragraphs in a way, but your opinion and your position are still clear. Okay? Let's move on. There is ample evidence that bringing food from the cities that are thousands of miles away for engender. No, wrong word here. Increases cost. The central reason behind this is threefold. Firstly, local foods eliminate transport expenses. Okay, so what happens? What does that mean? How does that help us? Secondly, the money which we spend on the local food will help the farmer and the government. Okay, how? Explain it to me. How do you think this is helpful? Lastly, people can buy more quantities, I guess, at the same price. For example, my personal experience, comma here, analyzing local food, people in India can buy 1 kilo, okay, 1 kilo of rice, which can feed 4 people with the price of noodles box. Okay, let's fix the grammar here again, please. For example, from my personal experience, by analyzing the local food people in India can buy, comma, 1 kilo of rice can feed 4 people with the price, at the same price as a noodle box, which is imported. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that native food is more cost-effective than foreign foods. Okay? Right. So let's move on. Although there is a case for importing food overseas, no, there isn't, because you've just told me all these reasons why there is not a case for importing foods. So this linking device here is inappropriately used. Okay? So no to this. You'd have to phrase this a little differently. Overseas, so really what you're saying is you're continuing with your agreement. So there's no, like I said, this is absolutely inappropriate. You have to say something else like, apart from the economic effect that non-local food has on the economy, there are other problems associated with it as well. That's the way you do this. This is largely because the food which is made by other countries needs to travel by sea or land, and they contain preservatives and chemicals so that they can be stored a long time. These foods are not only harmful, but also cause obesity. For example, research showed that an increasing number of people are suffering from obesity due to massive consumption of instant foods, which are not Indian, but preserved, I guess, or that contain preservatives. Full stop. New sentence. Consistent with this line of thinking is that food from outside the country is harmful to health. Thus, it is to state beyond doubt. No. Thus, beyond doubt, people should prefer only local food for their health and economy. Okay, but we didn't ask you about health. We asked you about the environment. Okay, so this whole paragraph is off topic, Kinjal. You needed to talk about how the environment is affected. So here you talked about economy, and that's fine. But here you need to talk about how this transport of foods affects the environment, not people's health. So this is absolutely off topic, and you're going to see your task achievement score affected as a result. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that people should prefer locally grown food because it will help increase the country's economy and does not affect local people's health. Okay, again, I've already said what the problem is. It's off topic. That whole second paragraph is off topic. There were a lot of problems with grammar. I really want you to revise some grammar. I want you to read some sample essays and really study them to see the types of grammar and the form that we use. So do some revision, please, and correct these essays, okay? Let's meet back here with your next set of essays. Good luck.